Dann wollen wir doch mal wieder. Ja, wisst schon was. Aber wer ist da überhaupt denn der Typ? It's oppressively hot down here, and the air is full of synthetic odors that grab you by the sinuses and refuse to let go. You can smell the engine grease and melting plastic, ionized air and lead solder. A quick scan of the room tells you why. The downstairs tent has converted the space into a machine shop. Metal fabrication tools and Duraplast extruders lines the wall, and a pair of heavy industrial manipulators hang from the ceiling. A man in a black trench coat stands with his back to you, staring at a monitor mounted above a studio workbench. He addresses you without turning. I was wondering when I'd meet the new neighbor. His voice is pleasant, cultured. There's a hint of a Russian accent there, but it's buried under a layer of nuisance. Please stay there where you are. I'll be with you in just a moment. Ein bisschen den Braum rauskommen lassen. And unless you fancy an unplanned trip to Chrome Alley, don't touch anything. There are all manners of tool, my friend, in there that could take your hand clean off. Take your time, I won't touch anything. Ah, you're very kind, thank you. You focus on the enormous manipulator arms that you saw earlier. They are bulky and industrial things, detended from years of heavy use. Each arm has been fitted with at least a dozen different wielders, soldering guns, extruders, and metal fabrication tools. You've seen machinery like this in factories before, but they look terrible out of place in the bolt-hole cramped engine room. Very, very good. That's coming only along nicely, very nicely indeed. He turns towards you, smiling, and for the first time you can see his face. He has broadly handsome Slavic features and a chiseled jaw. His eyes are like fleeks of ice. So sorry, I have kept you waiting, mister. Laut Macher. It's no problem, don't worry about it. You are too kind. No, tell me, what can I do for? His voice trails off as a flash of motion catches his eye. With alarming speed, a sinister-looking drone scuttles out from under the work table. Its moves are surprisingly agile and fluid. The machine rears back and machinery is spreading his forelegs in a clear sign of aggression. The man tilts his smile tilts, and his tone got apology. Please don't mind the drone. It can be territorial, but so long as you remain civil, it will not bite. He extends his hand. Simultaneously, the drone relaxes in a neutral position, lowering its killing legs. Rector, my mechanical counterpart here is called Kusha. Shake his hand. A pleasure. His hand is raw and abnormal warm to the touch. He shakes your hand with a solid grip. I'm very pleased to meet you, my friend. In a community such as Heo, it's important to be on good terms with one's neighbors. Agreed. Speaking of which, I'd like to ask you some questions if you have the time. He glanced at the brazier of his forehead. A technical display rings to life that gathers out. Very well. This morning casting should be cooling for a few minutes yet. That's time enough to talk. When you said this morning's casting, what did you mean? Exactly what I said. A casting that I made of a new locomotive assembly for Koshai. Gay stood at the display above the working table. A biomechanical. As you can see, this one inspired by working legs of a decapod crustacean, the mangrove crab to be specific. You are designing drone parts in here? And fabricating them, yes. How did you learn to do that? More training and experience than I care to mention, he offers you a very smile. Drone architecture was once my profession, you see. No, it's more of a calling, and that I'm free to purse, know that I'm freed my shells from shackles of cooperative servitude. Koshai is an interesting name for a drone. Yes, I suppose that there's no many writers would name the most prized possession after a villain of from a fairy tale. Not to my heritage, I suppose. What was this fairy tale about? A trout, and a trout, unpleasant person. Koshai the Deathless, he was called, and for good reason. His soul was cleverly hidden outside of his body, and he could not be killed as long as it remained intact. Koshai was a villain and a notorious kidnapper of women, but something about him always stuck with me. I suppose that it was the notion of immortality, the clever resonate. There was something to be learned from that. I was sure, and so when it came time to name my beloved creation, this was the first name that came to my mind. And is your drone deathless, like its namesake? In a manner of speaking, I suppose that he is. I have radiant copies of every piece of his architecture, and his core programming is stored on a secret location. Should he ever suffer critical damage, I can easily bring him back. I had a plan once to automate the self-repair process. I must confess this was really quite ingenious, but alas, my research was lost. One day I will reclaim it, and Kush I will become a deathless as the story claims, but it will not be today. You said you used for a co-op. Whose power were on you? That is something of a sore subject. My departure was involuntary, you see, and do not part with my employers under the best of terms. I will tell you that I work for Gishin Avikor, but you will forgive me if I want to go into detail. You got some interesting machinery in here. Not a kind of the typical see outside of copyright settings. The same could be said of many in here. I'm sure this is a smuggler's den, is it not? Our entire economy basis on people having things that don't have shun. Is there a political device that interested you out of curiosity? The robotics arms that you got over there. They look like something taken from an automotive assembly plant. Good, he smiles, flushes politely and does. Good guess, that's precisely what they are. The feel of a boat, you might say. They weren't cheap, but I acquired them and had them mounted to the wall of my shop simply. I had to have them. The return of investment has been dramatic. Yes, the cooler by far than the Waldo devices that I use in my professional life, but they still do the job, and they are mine. Gazes lovingly at the industrial arms. Stares me. They have increased my fabrication capabilities nearly tenfold, and that's to me worth any price. Are you Russian? I thought I caught a hint of an accent there. He nods. You have a good ear. I'm impressed. Yes, I grew up in Nizhny Novgorod and went to school and started my career there in industrial sector, and a fairly common story, I'm sure. But I have also traveled a great deal, and I so doing I have absorbed a number of other languages and dialects. How many languages do you speak? Counting Russian and Cantonese, 15. If it shames me to admit that I'm only illiterate in 12. That's still impressive. Perhaps compared to the common man, but I've known a great many polyglots who can and do put me to shame. Gives you another half shrug and casual mirrors the gesture. Arabic has been a particular bugbear to me. The unfamiliar characters and the lack of vowels make it damn tricky to handle on, but I suppose all men have the limits. Keeping all this machinery running can't be cheap. How can you afford it? Freelance. Freelance at the risk of sounding immodest, I've committed myself rather well. There are always corporations in need of design consultations. You're surprised by how lucrative such work can be, and there's always other work than I can do in a pinch. You said that you did other work besides consulting. Care to tell me what kind? He pauses for a second, because something clicks in his eye. Kosha lowers his body into a crouch. Await a personal question, would you say? Maybe, but then we are having a personal conversation. Indeed, we are, but even a personal conversations topics can contain topics can be held off limit. Truth be told, I don't feel especially comfortable discussing my side work of relating strangers. Suffice is to say my feelings act of fair on illegit end of the spectrum. It's okay, I've dropped the subject. Maybe we can come back to it later. Perhaps. No, well, look about your side work. You're a runner, aren't you? You. I dislike the terms, but yes, I want the seller. What gave me away? Design consultants live in an apartment in Victoria Harbour. You are living in a rusted out boat in Ohio. There's gotta be a reason for that. You are correct, of course. The residents of shadow communities are usually either too poor to live elsewhere or engage of behaviors too illegal to risk it. I admit to being in the latter camp. Design with vertex is my passion, but it doesn't always pay the bills. He runs and hand over Kershaw's armor cases, caressing the sculpted metal with a string. My status as a foreigner has proven something on an impingement in the regard, and so sorry as I may to be said, it's the length of my income flows from cautious appetite for butchery. Such is life, suppose. We do what we must do to what we love. Seems like everybody on this boat runs the shows. Why not pool our resources and work together? A passes his lips in a compelling offer. I'm doing quite well on my own, but I must admit then that there are certain jobs for which I'm unsuited. Magic adults me. I'm not a decker. My strengths come from my material obsession in the real world. Solid things with mass and have things that I can build and operate. Sadly, a great many clients are only interested in teams that display a mastery of the intangible. This group of yours, do you have people who cover this basis so then perhaps we can... Yes, we have a shaman and a decker. Both are competent in their jobs. In that case, I will accept your offer on professional basis. Well, do a few runs together and see how we get on. If our occasion bears fruit, it will continue. If not, I will bid you my farewell and go back to working alone. How does this sound? Welcome aboard. Very good, excellent. When you achieve a job, you know where to find me. My skill and resources are at your disposal. And with that, I'm afraid that you must bid you good day. I still haven't work to do down here. The Lex assembly won't clean itself. I'll be in touch. Looking forward to work with you. And with you. So, wir haben einen neuen Shadowrunner. Das ist schon mal geil. Rector Rigger. Beard. Rector Stone. Das gefällt mir. Also ist er... Der Kerl ist ja fast so was wie ein Hunter. Ist ja geil. Yes. Noch irgendwas Interessantes hier? Hey, danke. Boost cabin appeared to be only clean spot on a bolt hole. It's equipped is neatly laid out on his bedding, grouped by type arranged just so. Currently in the process of cleaning his weapon with meticulous care. Well, that's I guess we run shows now. Yep, think it's time to catch up. Rightly. He stops for a moment, stares at the weapon in his hand. That's why I'm maintaining my equipment. It helps me focus my brain. Work through stuff. Besides, lowers the rifle. No, as good as a time as any. I guess where do you want to start? I want to talk about Raymond. Okay, shot. What do you think is going on with him? I don't know, Hood. We are clearly obsessed with the world city. And whatever possibility it is, he sounds like a sleepwalker trying to stumble his way through a dream or something. A sleepwalker who hires Shadowrunners. From a triad boss. Raymond was smart as hell. I'm sure he had a reason for using kindly Cheng as a fixer. Why do you think he came to Hong Kong? Well, he is from here, right? He sounds like he had unfinished business that needed to be taken care of before you think he's dying? Maybe. Just something to think about. Did he say anything about me after I left? You know, Raymond, he told us that he wanted to teach us, told us what he wanted us to know. Everything else was met with a wall of good, natural silence. He used to say, "You are the master of the unspoken word, Mr. Wu. Once it is out of your mouth, it's out of your control." So no, after you left, he never said a word about you, not a word. Let's talk about something else. So, let's talk about being Shadowrunners. That's theirs to say. I worked my ass off to pull myself out of the gutter and make something of my life. I did what I took to earn my bronze, and now I'm mercenary, hiding in the shadows of a foreign country, doing dirty jobs that the cops need to keep off the books. It's the reserve of everything I ever wanted. You seem to be taking it to it pretty damn well, so let me ask you something. You said you thought that Raymond was alive too. That's we ran the cells until we could figure out what happened. Was that true? Yes, for me, that's all about figuring out what really happened to Raymond. Good, then we are on the same page. We better knowing that. What's your opinion on kindly Jane? I say she got out right where she wants us, right under her thumb. That do you want to talk about specific? What about a plastic-faced man? Creepy dudes are nothing new to me, even while there's creepy corporate dudes. Between the gangers we grew up with and the shit that we run into as cops, I've seen all kinds that just want to know who he is and who he works for. What do you think he wants from us? As long as the networks keeps deliver information of Raymond, I don't care, at least for now. Yeah, we need to stay with her. We have no other connection in some without her we are dead and rough. You think we can trust her? I try about and the underground thinks no, I don't think we can trust her, but as long as we are sure the same goals, we should be okay. Makes sense. As long as we serve her interests, we don't have a reason to screw us over. Exact. It's simple. She provides jobs, we do jobs, she gets info about Raymond and the plastic faced man, and we figure out what the hell is going on. We we figure out what's going on, and she doesn't end up in the trunk of a car at the bottom of the river. Everybody wins. We should keep an eye on string the bow. We should keep an eye on everybody. That's guys definitely not a checked section. I've been plenty of cold killers in the Barrens and plenty or more since I joined Leinster. This guy is the real deal. I'm not sure if he knows what a war remorse even means. You should steer clear of him. I'll be careful. I can see it. Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about Gazabet and Evil. They seem competent considering how young they are, but then again, it sounds like they have been taking care of themselves since they were pretty young. The three of us worked together well in Wild City. Based on that, I bet the four of us would make a solid crew. Do I trust them? As far as I trust anyone, yeah. It's like Raymond used to say, trust and verify. They haven't given me any reason to not trust them. So until I do, believe what they say and keep my eyes up. I can't get the dream that I had out of my head. You said you had one too, right? Yeah, you sound like a nest round. I don't remember much about mine. Was pretty creeped out before I ran into the wild city. Between that and all the drama, I'd be surprised I didn't have a nightmare. Did it feel any different from other nightmares you have? He takes his time and thinks about this and bits before he was. You know, sometimes you'll be mad at a friend in a dream and then wake up you still mad at him. Then you treat him like he's did something wrong when you see him. It's kind of like that to me. Like I dreamed I was swimming towards a bright light, and when I woke up, it, I was out of breath from the effort. Was the village city in your dream? Of course, the village city was in my dream. It was a nightmare, wasn't it? He gave out a lapsed grin. Was it in your dream? So it looked like it. I'm not sure I'm surprised. The village city is more than just another slum in Israel. Hell, it's a spore. Of course we dreamed about it. That the feeling I have there stayed with me. Feel thick, heavy. I got this overwhelming feeling of, I don't know, wretched I guess. What do you remember about yours? Just little nets of thing. He puts his hand on his abs. The whole city was beeping, and it had teeth everywhere, and there was a tunnel that was so bright that I had to shut my eyes. And Raymond was there. Was either kneeling or lying down. Can't remember which, but he was crying. That what made me wake up. The sound of my father crying. Let's talk about something else. Right, let's talk later. Later's good. I want to some cardio work off some steam. That's the rack time for me. You should do the same. A couple hundred push-ups will do you good. Please, I could bust 200 in my sleep. I love to see that sometime, but for now you should clear out. I wanted to get started, and this cabin isn't big enough for two. Okay, dann nehmen wir mal endlich den Mission Computer. Your workstation and the missing computer. The cool blue tones of the workstation menu you fill the screen. Blink. Check your inputs. Command. Blah blah blah. Blah blah blah. Go back. I've got a problem. You're going to help me solve it. If you will not the one person at the top of the effect just and the rest taking blah 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 to make a thread good high take. A lot of me press with pass the little fingers and make them a lot of money broken deals between the money. I've had a snack to the weapon analysis considered by being asking me off to get to the bottom of it and start the hell. And they're not taking the goods to my turf and tired. So you're going to my box there. Can't how do you, but I need to smell us to stop. The one person diligent by the name of Maximum Lair. Speak of him if you wish to know about Vampor. He's got a big mouth, but he knows very little of importance. Don't accept much from that half-empty bottle of vinegar. You get your ass down to Vampor Garden and talk to the light sheet and stay if you have to. As long as you literally won't be any more murders. I want my cat back, and I want to take the one. Good, I'll tell her as you coming. And they don't like outsiders and they might shoot at you if you don't want them to obey away. Okay, haben wir einen Job, den nehmen wir dann beim nächsten Mal an. Ciao mit V und tschüss.